there's some things she's going to see herself. But the point is, I was in a relationship until my final year. I did a 5-year course, she did a 4-year course. And so even if I came to school before her, we were graduating together. You know, so at that time, my former relationship did not work out. I knew that I wasn't very wonderful lady.
Yeah, very, very amazing.
Exactly. You know, but I knew that it was not meant to be. You know, but I never really saw her that way. I never really saw you that way. We were working together, praying together, preaching together, and all of that. And I remember one day I was praying, and I felt the leading of God to write out.
That was after you guys had ended that relationship.
I felt the leading of God to write out what I wanted, because I felt like I just come out of a relationship that was really a good relationship. So the question was, what really did I want? You know, so I wrote out the qualities I wanted. In fact, I won't tell you the things but almost immediately I was done, give or take maximum 10 minutes after I was done, you came into the office where I was. I was a student leader in school, so we had offices. So you came into the office where I was. And you were ranting about some challenge you had with your project.
I basically deleted my chapter 5 that I had worked on all day. So I was in a really bad mood. I was just looking for a shoulder to cry on.
And whilst she was there ranting, for the first time ever, I was looking at her, looking at the list I had written, looking at her, and I was trying to show empathy about what had happened to your project. But I was like, oh my God, like, what, I mean, how come I'm just realizing, you know? And, in fact, it was complicated. Of course, I was her mentor. I still mentor her, even though, of course, we're friends and I'm a pastor and all of that. And at that time, there was a little something about to.
Yeah, I was in a situationship. Is that what you call
it? What do you call it?
Undefined situationship at that time.
Yeah, the one who gives it all these terms.
Who he was encouraging me to date.
Yes, who was also my protege.
Yes, it was really weird. In fact, I cannot just. So when I met him, I liked him like immediately.
Okay.
And we used to hang out. I think then my roommates knew, we used to have services, I think, on Thursdays. And my roommates knew that I would see you because that was the only time I would wear makeup.
Okay.
And I would dress. And I'm like, I'm going to see Emmanuel tomorrow. Then we're not calling you pastor yet. I'm going to see Emmanuel tomorrow. What am I going to wear? And so I would dress up and then we would walk after service together. Then I would go to my class and you would go to yours. Yeah. But after a few weeks, I realized that you began to give space. I think that was around the time you guys started dating.
Yeah.
So I would only see you maybe during meetings and then I would say, oh, are we not working together? And you say, oh, I'm busy. I don't even know if you remember.
Not quite. But
a few people hinted me that you were in a relationship. And so one led to the other and we brought up the discussion. And at that point in time, you felt that was the direction that your life was going. And it made sense that I think as we grow older, we learn a lot. And so we talked about it and we said, oh, well, no problem. Let's move on. And then ministry, which is now Celebration Church, started. I almost dated somebody. You encouraged me to date. Can you remember?
It just made sense.
And I almost did another person. You're going to be dating like 2 people.
Like she loves the Lord. Oh my God.
Oh my God. And you know. So it was in the midst of this, my situationship. I think we were in final year. I was in 400 because I did a 4-year course. You were in 500. And you told me my relationship with this amazing young lady who is married now and is happily married and has a child. And you said, I don't think this relationship is going to work out. And somehow that statement was a simple statement. Because she said, okay, can you pray along with me? I just want to know what God is saying. But my own prayer. I can't remember that. I can remember very well. My own prayer was, God, let him not break up with this girl because I can never date this guy. Because the only thing that kept me from imagining myself dating you was the fact that you were in a relationship.
Okay.
And so I was like, somebody in a relationship. I won't even put my mind because let's just be friends. And so it was easier for me to be closer to you.
Yes, I got to know you better. You got to know me
without any,
that
feelings, emotions, and it was so. But the next time you said the relationship had ended, and then we started spending time together, final year runs, we had ministry meetings, or if there was clearance, TTJ, things like that. And people would say, you and this guy. And I'd be like, no, I can never do
The funny thing is, before then, we were working together, but no one ever made those statements.
Yeah.
At least not openly. I still see the fingerprints of God behind all of this.
Honestly.
Because for some reason, we're working, and people are saying it loud to our hearing.
Like, I remember a particular day, there were like 3 different people who made similar statements. Like you and
in a space of 30 minutes, we were walking to a classroom, and in about 30 minutes, 3 people.
It was strange. It was so strange. The confirmations were so amazing. And then beyond the confirmations, because of course we teach people that you should make your choice with God. And I remember somebody asking, when one particular guy asked me, I said I wanted to think about it. And my sister said, if it was Emmanuel that asked you, I said, I would say yes, because you were the kind of person that I wanted to be with. Somebody who loved the Lord, was in ministry, was also a friend, and then we were going the same direction. And I'm just grateful that it all worked out.
I'm grateful.
Although I didn't agree immediately. You asked me, I was like,
you're very lucky.
No. You are the one that is lucky. You are lucky. In fact,
you are doing shakara.
Because when you first asked me, I remember going to my room and just basically crying all night. Because I was like, I really liked this guy before. And then tears coming. And I was like, I'm not talking to you
It
again.
was really complicated.
And I actually kind of liked somebody else, but no, it wasn't even close. Now that I look about it, it wasn't close at all. So a few months later, I said yes. After all your drama, your begging.
I have to say that in those 3 months, I just feel you were just giving it time just for, I don't know.
I didn't.
Hold on now. Wait now.
Okay,
Let's recount some things.
Land.
When we were convocating, the way it's done in my alma mater is you sit with your course mates.
I already liked you that
Wait
time
now, but is that not in the 3 month space?
Oh yeah, let me explain.
No, now you want to explain.
No,
you want to
okay.
explain.
Let me.
And then I was going to my seat. She called out to me and said,
No, it was like 8 days.
Wait.
I already liked you then.
Wait,
Okay,
no. She said, can you come and sit with me?
I already liked you then. I already knew I was going to say yes then.
But okay, so now I'm going to my seat, and you call me, and in that period, though, you friend zone me.
Oh my god!
Yes,
oh
I'm
my
saying
god! Oh my god! Do you guys know what? When he first asked me out, I think it was around Easter that year, 2011. That's when I started going out. I got married in 2014. When he first asked me out, I did not pray about it. In my mind, it was a no, because I knew the person you were dating. You knew the person that I was in a situationship with. We were all kind of close.
That
It was
situationship
weird. It was a very long. It's a very long.
No, but the grammar is a situationship anyway.
Anyway, that's what is about anyway. So anyway, what was I saying? But in that period, I didn't pray about it. You can ask, when I was talking in the last live video that you showed up, I said, ask me, when is my roommate? That you
What's your roommate?
I miss her. She was my roommate that I didn't even know you were talking to her about what was going on with us. I just remember just being like, oh my God, how is it going to be? What are people going to say? But the more, I think for like a month, I didn't pray about it. And then one day when they were doing this speech competition, I now came to sit close to you. That was, I think, like 1 or 2 months after you had asked me out. And that's when we now actually started spending time together. And then that was when I finally prayed about it. You know, I knew I was going to date you. Like,
let me tell you something that happened to me. When I asked you out, I was a little embarrassed by the whole thing. You know, there was a little bit of ego. Like I asked her out, she said no, and all of that. I understand you were afraid, and
it was weird.
It was complicated.
But looking back now, it doesn't seem like such a big deal.
Well, thank God. But basically, I actually had started to zoom out. You might not have known, but in fact, I began to pray, and I was like, you know, God, there has to be other options, you know, and all of that. But one night, the Lord spoke to me. The Lord spoke to me. I'm not going to actually say verbatim, you know, what I heard the Lord say. But long and short was telling me that this was His will and that I shouldn't give up. Do you understand? So my conclusion that night was, well, I'm not going to talk to her. Do you understand? Like, if God is actually talking to me, let her initiate the next conversation. Okay. So then TTG had started. Okay. And I was sitting at the back. You always sat in front. And
I was angry about something. I really what 3-piece suit that day.
Yeah, I was always a handsome guy, not to wake. I was just
playing. Always been a handsome.
Oh, and I was even teasing. So you came to the back. You know, you were angry about something. You know, and you know, and you were just saying this person did this. And I was like, oh, sorry. And that afternoon, you said, are you going to the cafeteria? Let's go and have lunch. Do you understand? So that simple gesture, you know, just
open the door. But I think even after then, there were still some. I think when you are young, you may not be able to process a lot of things at once. So I'm really grateful for patience on both parts. I'm grateful for the Holy Spirit because I know that even after that time, I was like, okay, let me give him a chance. Sometimes I'll be like, what if not? What if? So, but I'm grateful for our journey so far. We've been married 5 years.
Yeah. You did do shakara and see where you did.
I don't want to.
You don't want to. Praise God.
Hallelujah. We've been married 5 years. What was it about me that made you say, I'm going to marry this girl?
First, no. Actually, I'm like, there's so many things to say. I'm like, where do I start? Okay. So, first of all, we're really close. Do you understand? I felt like I could actually do life with you. You know, I mean, just, without thinking, you know, it was going to be a pleasure. Secondly, you love the Lord. That has always ranked very high for me. And then thirdly, around that period, I don't know what occasion that was. We had a meeting, and there was something I was lackadaisical about or discouraged about. And you took that ministry, that small youth fellowship like your own, and you came in and you encouraged me and you told me, this is what you're doing, this is what you're doing. You know,
I can't even remember.
Yeah, in fact, I remember clearly what I'm saying, but I can't remember what it is you were doing. But long and short, you showed so much commitment to God and the work. Do you understand? So, and it really mattered to me that you know, at that time, everybody who sees what we're doing now, pastoring 700 people and all of that, but at that time, it was just vision at its raw state. So it really ranked high for me that you could see what God was going to do. You supported 100%, you know. So love for God, love for ministry, love for people.
And I find that.
I can't lie.
I'm your
that
snake.
part, you know, so that was it.
Well, my own answer to that question. I wanted a guy who loved the Lord and who was a spiritual leader, like who was the same person on the inside and like that he was on the outside. And I remember my mom saying, date this guy. Like, she always really loved you because of the way you've always treated people, whether or not they were high up there, whatever level of society they were. You've always had that heart for God and heart for people and commitment to me. I remember when my organization, Having It in First Saturday, we had our first outreach and it was to buy food for all the cleaners. I don't know if you remember.
I remember.
It was to buy, I think it was that same year, a few months before the date. It was to buy food for all the cleaners. And for some reason, the money had finished and I was just like, oh my God. And you came and you gave me 8,000. I think you said it was from, I don't even know if it was from you or if it was from TTY, which was at that time. And it really touched me. Like, I was like, oh my God, like, this guy is so...
I can't remember.
Just having that heart for me, pushing me to do better, to be all that God has called me to be. I think because I know that I have a lot of gifts and I have a lot of talents, but I think there's a part of me that used to be afraid of failure. And I'm like, let me just. But you've always been that person who, through your words and through your actions, will push me and say, get out of your comfort zone and do better. And I was crying. Let me stop there.
Oh, love you.
So, what has marriage? Why did we decide to get married? Because I think we're in our early 20s when we got married. Let me not start discussing age. In our early 20s, when we got married. Why? What would your advice be to people who probably want to get married at that age, or are considering getting married at that age, or around that age, and are in relationships that are right for my body? Feel, oh my God, you're still so young. What would you say to?
Well, I really. How do I approach this? A lot of people mature differently. There are people who are still babies at 35. There are people who are adults at 16. You know, so it has a lot to do with the sense of responsibility. The first thing you need to know is that marriage is very different from a lovey-dovey affair. You know, it's not just butterflies now. This is responsibility. If you're the guy, you're going to head a home, you're going to have kids. If you're a woman, you're going to mother children. Like, you have to be a nurturer. You have to, and then you talk about the financial responsibility. You talk about that independence. You know, even for mature people, that phase where you're separated from your parents, you know, and you know, before, you know, whether or not you're doing well financially, there's a backup plan. You can say, "Daddy, mommy," you know, I know that. But you now want to thrive on your own. It's not easy at all. You know, so I think they first of all have to realize it's serious business. It's serious. So when older people are telling you take your time, sometimes they're just afraid and, you know, they overdo it. But in all of that, see the seriousness of the situation. They want you to see that it's not child's play at all. It's going to be challenging and all of that. So that's the first thing. And of course, you have to be an adult. Some level of independence, a reasonable level of independence. The worst thing that can happen to a lady is to marry a mommy's boy or a daddy's boy. You know, you cannot stand up for your woman, protect her, you know, from unfriendly friends, unfriendly relatives, and all of that, and vice versa. For the lady to, you know, just that boldness, the bravery to be a family. You know, it takes a lot of bravery. You know, financial independence and all of that.
And I think also understanding what the marriage institution itself is supposed to be, because there's a tendency to just take your cue from social media and Hollywood, and then you get into marriage and you just expect this person to be a certain specific kind of way. So make sure that you understand, so that people have different ideas about marriage, but you take the one whose idea it was in the first place, who is God. So I think when you have that understanding and when you're going to the right motives, because some people are just like, let's not get married because of marriage pictures, so it's be on Nigeria. But are you really thinking about how productive marriage will be in the long run, or whether you're getting to it for the right reasons? I have a final question for you.
Okay.
So let's say I'm a young man watching this who is in ministry. What would your advice be to me when it comes to choosing a spouse?
Choosing a spouse?
Yes, choosing a spouse.
Well, choosing a spouse, I'm glad you asked that question separately for a young minister, because I can tell you categorically it's slightly different. Your life is going to take a slightly different direction. I think, first of all, you have to marry someone who is understanding. If you marry someone who herself does not love the Lord, I'm not just talking about churchgoer, but who is, when we talk about Christian consecration, who is committed to the gospel, you're going to have an issue. A simple example, this God lover here, we were settled in Lagos, and then the Lord asked us to relocate to Abuja. You know, and it was a difficult move, but as soon as I told her, you know, and she had that witness, right, in your heart, that it was the Lord. She supported me, you know. In fact, there is something I'm going to say here, maybe for the first time. She had the opportunity to have a doctorate degree program, and she suspended that. And that meant a lot to me. So a man of God has to realize that his schedule is going to be flexible, needs an understanding woman. You know, many times I've had to travel to preach, you know, sometimes leave you at home with the kids, you know, the way you've risen to the occasion, you know, it's been very impressive, very commendable. You know, so I think that that's something to really consider. Also, a lot of people have different views concerning full-time ministry and part-time ministry and all of that, but whatever be the case, a pastor still has to be financially capable. You know, so when you're considering getting married, okay, now, well, let me just talk about this.
Talk about it.
Yeah, you even if you want the ministry to cater for your needs, and there's biblical precedence for that, initially, you might have to get a part-time job. You might have to get a part-time job just to make sure that you're catering for your family well, you know, and then when you get to that point where the ministry can shoulder that burden, then... Which
is what you did at the
Which is what I did. So I actually worked, you know, I actually worked the job, you know, and before I made that transition.
Yeah. I also wanted to add something. I can't remember.
Okay, since your question is what to look out for, right?
When choosing a spouse, and then any other relationship advice you can give to young pastors, I think could also.
And then I think a lot of men of God enter into marriage as if they're, like a friend of mine would say, don't try to be a guest minister in your house. You know, you can help out with stuff. Make sure your wife is comfortable. If you can get a help, get a help. You know, if you can't, then you have to help out with stuff. You know, don't expect, if your wife says, can you help with the generator? Don't say, are you talking to me? You know, and stuff like that. So you have to be considerate. You have to be considerate.
I think people don't understand that the role of a dad or a husband is not really the same thing as the role of a pastor. And so just learning to balance, it, because sometimes some people will see us and be like, I'm sure Pastor Iren doesn't do that in his house or something like that. But you need to see him playing with the kids or helping out. So I think just understanding your different roles and that your role as a family person is also as important, because many times you have pastors' children who are so disillusioned with ministry as a whole because their parents were not present. So being present, making efforts to make relationship work. Like that friend of ours who did not call his girlfriend for 2 weeks and said, doesn't she know I'm a pastor? And because the lady was upset. So just trying to make that effort. Finally.
Okay.
What makes marriage work?
What makes marriage work? Consistent forgiveness. Consistent forgiveness. You know, learning to, you see, marriage is like every other, on a basic level, it's like any other team building scenario. Okay. Exactly. Like any other team building, there's the norming and the storming phase. So you guys get together, you're familiar, and then the journey is going on. You get together, you're familiar, and then you begin to recognize the differences. Those differences are amplified. You know, so now you have to adapt, learn how not to say it next time, what to do better next time. You have to learn together and forgive each other consistently. So
true. Thank you so much for being on my channel.
My pleasure.
I love you. Kiss me real kiss now.
I love you, dear.
Okay, guys, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Have a lovely day.
Bye-bye.